Do you wish to grow your business? Why not enter the 2012 Adcorp Business Investment Competition? Call Cindy on 011 544 1900 or email cindy@groundedmedia.co.za and you could win your share of 375,000 Rand in cash prizes. Entrance closed 3 August 2012.
According to Adcorp's latest job stats, employment in South Africa fell 2% in June on the back of a much higher drop of 3.1% in May. This equals to just over 31,700 jobs lost during the month. Loane is a labor economist with Adcorp. Thanks so much for joining us, Loane.
Thank you.
Now, some worrying figures in the latest data, especially the fact that employment really is not going anywhere in a hurry yet. We have substantial shortage of skilled people in the country, so what is going on?
Well, I think what these for June and for May indicate is that the economy has deteriorated significantly over the last 6 months. And I think we can attribute that to two things. The first is that monetary policy settings have remained very much the same over the last 2.5 years, even though the domestic and international picture has changed dramatically. Monetary policy settings, I think, are now grossly inappropriate to the risks to the domestic economy. And the second thing that has changed is that labor regulations are now being tightened when almost every survey indicates that some parts of the labor market in South Africa are the most highly regulated in the world. So really, government policy settings are very unhelpful to employment, and we're starting to see the effects of that. So are really catastrophic problems, and we're not expecting employment to improve very much over the next 6 months for the rest of the year.
Do you get the feeling that we are spending money on training people in the wrong kinds of jobs or occupations?
Oh, very definitely. You know, our universities have been quite sly and cunning in this. They've received instructions from government to enroll more students, but they haven't changed their entry criteria for the professions, because the universities are colluding with the professional bodies to restrict entry in order to boost living standards for the professionals who do qualify. So we're seeing more and more graduates, hundreds of thousands of graduates, in areas like social sciences, humanities, the arts, who are just not relevant to the workplace. So there are currently about 600,000 unemployed graduates in South Africa with qualifications like that who just are not finding work, and the universities are hugely complicit in this. But the authorities don't seem to have recognized this. I suppose they would have put a stop to it if they did. But for example, the number of doctors in South Africa is basically unchanged since 1975. The number of new law graduates, the number of new accounting professionals is basically just sufficient each year to replace the number of retirees.
Loane, I'm just going to stop you there. Let's go back to the report. Your employment categories, except I think in the informal sector, actually reporting a decline. I would assume that a lot of people then are opting out of the formal sector and going into informal sector. So these jobs are actually being created outside the net, so to speak.
Well, we're seeing the disintegration of the formal sector employment in South Africa, and the informal sector by any means secure, stable employment with benefits, etc. In fact, it's characterized overwhelmingly by people earning less than 1,200 Rand a month. But the informal sector also has its driving forces. The increased hostility of the CCMA toward especially small businesses, as well as the increasing aggressiveness of the Revenue Service towards small businesses through the so-called tax amnesty, if you want to use a euphemism. These things have driven formal employers to opt out of the formal sector into the informal sector. Our stats show that over the last 5 years, 440,000 small business enterprises migrated to the informal sector.
What about the ANC policy conference? I mean, that was where everybody was focusing. They expected, the ANC would touch on very important issues around unemployment. Were you satisfied with some of the resolutions that came out?
No. I mean, there are so many important issues in South Africa, and none of them were addressed. I mean, we were talking about terminology and semantics when there are so many substantial issues in South Africa. The most important issue is the crumbling of government services, which are gradually being replaced by more and more effective private services. So we've seen public sector security in the police service replaced by private security. We're seeing more and more public education being replaced by low-fee private schools. We've seen private arbitration replacing the malfunctioning judiciary. We're seeing road freight replacing the